Hello and welcome to the Raisina Ideas Pod. And today we have with us Air Chief Marshal V.R. Chaudhari, Chief of Air Staff, Indian Air Force, to discuss about Indian Air Force, the changing nature of air power, and the changing global security environment. Sir, welcome.
Thank you.
We know that, and we've seen over the last few years, a dramatic shift in the global security environment from wars and conflicts that are being fought in different ways with different kind of institutional and doctrinal evolutions that we have seen. When you look at some of these conflicts, Armenia, Ukraine, and now in the Middle East, what are some of the lessons you are drawing, particularly from the vantage point of the Indian Air Force?
I think it's very important that we study all these conflicts very closely and get the correct doctrinal lessons, like you mentioned. And in so doing, in particular with the ongoing conflicts in Russia, Ukraine, or the Israel-Hamas conflict, or even those conflicts of the past, some things that have stood out loud and clear, firstly, is the necessity of having a requisite degree of control of the air. Unless you have the control of the air, you cannot persecute other operations, effortlessly. So the requirement to carry out what we call suppression of enemy air defenses or destruction of enemy air defenses or counter air operations is a predominant requirement of the air forces to be able to equip and to be able to persecute such kind of operations in future. You use this term doctrine. We have been very dynamic in formulation of our doctrine. We have issued a new doctrine just last year, which actually captures the lessons learned from global conflicts and how the utilization of air power can be a domain that can affect all the other domains, including the space domain, the cyber domain, the maritime and the land domains. It can have an effect across all the domains. So, having learned from these last conflicts, we have put this actually in our doctrine.
So, in a sense, when you're looking at some of the technological evolutions, so particularly unmanned aerial combat, where is India at this point, and how are you assessing and bringing it into your thinking?
I think the utility of drones or unmanned vehicles has come to light after the Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict and more so also in the ongoing conflicts across the globe. While they have proven their utility, particularly in the field of ISR, in terms of being used as offensive weapons, the debate is still on whether they are really effective means of carrying out offensive strikes, or are they more of a nuisance value? So we can keep discussing on this issue. What is important is to be able to develop adequate counters to such kind of the new threats that are emerging. But having said so, what is more important and what we are focusing on is on the futuristic manned-unmanned teaming. Because in a contested airspace that is obtaining in our neighborhood here today, it is very unlikely that standalone unmanned missions will have much success unless they are supported by, or teamed with manned aircraft missions also. So towards this, we have we are collaborating with industries, with HAL in particular, and some private players to be able to move on to the next generation of utilization of warfare using the RPAs or the UAVs in this manned-unmanned teaming concept. Extensive use of AI, of course, will be the predominant feature of this emerging technology. And we are quite cognizant of what we require, and we have laid out our roadmap quite clearly on this.
So in terms of big ideas, and particularly in the context of the indigenous aircraft projects that you have, are you confident that Tejas is picking up the slack for you?
Definitely, yes. It is. We have laid a lot of emphasis on ensuring that the Tejas will fit in the slot of the aircraft, the fleets that we have retired in the past and the ones we are going to retire in the near future. Having said so, I think we have laid a lot of confidence in our own domestic industry, and we hope that they will live up to the expected production rates to be able to meet the requirements of the Indian Air Force in the coming years.
So you're confident in terms of the balancing with Make in India, which is one of the government of India's initiatives.
Yes, I'm very confident. Yes, I'm very confident that they will make good the void that has emerged out of the depleting resources in the last few years. The point is that they need to match up with our expectations. When I say they, the Indian industry needs to match up with our expectations of adequate production rate and maintaining the desired, fill rate for the Indian Air Force.
And in terms of the challenges that you foresee for the next decade, in terms of resources and technology, what are some of those big ideas that you are focused on that they should not become a constraint as Indian Air Force looks to the next decade?
See, the Indian Air Force, in particular, air power in general, is very technology dependent. And the way technology is galloping, keeping in pace with the Moore's law, I think we also need to really keep up our ability to harness the power of technology in all our weapon systems and, in our basic operational methodologies. Towards this, I think we are focusing on the use of AI primarily for information gathering, for decision making, for tools. AI tools are being used for predicting maintenance, predicting supply chain issues, or even predicting what we call the operational stamina that we have based on the resources that can be harnessed at any given time. Apart from the AI and the software in the use of aircraft or weapon systems, what is not seen usually is the networks and the communication systems, and that is where we are heavily dependent on the emerging technologies. And I'm very happy to say that we have adapted quite well. We have software-defined networks. We are making extensive use of the 5G communication technology. And we are quite prepared to take on the new technologies, absorb them at the earliest.
And how open are you in terms of global partnerships? Because this has become a predominant theme now of both Indian defense engagement and defense diplomacy. When you look at Indian Air Force cooperating with like-minded countries across the world, what kind of partnerships are you envisioning?
I think there's a lot to learn from engaging with like-minded countries and air forces in particular. We were quite fortunate. Actually, last year was a watershed year for us where we had more than 11 engagements with friendly foreign air forces. And these engagements bring to light not only the areas of interoperability or commonality in protocols and communication and such like, but also a lot to take away from the best practices followed by these countries. So I think there's a lot of mutual learning and ability to be able to interoperate in future wherever the need arises.
And in terms of inter-services integration, the processes as they've moved forward over the last few years, we've seen a number of institutional change, big institutional structural changes in the systems. Are you satisfied with the pace of those change and where the Indian Air Force fits in those changes?
Yeah, absolutely. We have started looking at, creating new structures or, institutional changes through the prism of having a very strong foundation for these structures to last for a long time. And these structures, whatever are being created, have to be very peculiar to our environment. We cannot cut, copy, paste from somebody else's idea. What we are working on right now is to build the foundational blocks, which comprise of things like common communications, common logistics, common maintenance procedures, common human resource policy, and so on. So these, I believe, are the blocks that need to be firmly in place before we build a bigger edifice. And work is in progress, and I think we are doing quite well.
So you mentioned about we started off from that, and I sort of want to circle back to this question about the doctrine that came out last year. Are there any specific aspects that you think, given the changes, need revisiting, whether in terms of emerging tech or in terms of the changing nature of warfare, or are you satisfied with the doctrinal changes that you have incorporated last year?
Like I said, doctrine is not dogma. We are open to to change. We are willing to revisit it every now and then based on the lessons we are learning. Doctrine, the foundation lies on 3 or 4 issues. One is the new emerging technologies. The second is the operational experience that we gain. Not only that we gain ourselves, but what we glean from what is happening across the globe. And the third is, of course, newer structures that will keep emerging as the days go by. So apart from this, in the past, we were focusing more on procurements and capability building based on threats. Now we are looking more, rather than focusing purely on threats, yes, looking at what is the capability demanded of us. And our future roadmap to procurements and capacity building of the FOs comes from this doctrinal aspect that we need to look at what is the capability demanded from us and how adept are we going to be in the future to be able to meet the aspirations of the nation.
Thank you, sir. On that note, it gives me immense pleasure to conclude this conversation. It was lovely having you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.